Yeah, baby. Yeah. The Mac is back. Back with another video. Hello, the initiated. My name is Marcus Junikala, and today we're checking out String Formations by Fracture Sounds. Another Fracture Sounds release. I'm digging this release tempo, this schedule that they've been on. Really, seems like they're taking that to the next level here. Kind of surprised, but in a positive way, that it's another string library. You can never really have too many good string sample libraries. They all kind of do their own thing. So very interested in seeing what this is like. This is a completely blind demo. I believe I've heard one single note of this being played on a clip of theirs, or maybe one chord. I can't remember. So you shall get my authentic blind response. But in terms of what this is, we're going to open the, what is it called? These have a name. Well, it's kind of like a release note thing, press thing. Anyway, String Formations is a collection of long textures and gestures that harness the combined creativity of our smart interval and layer blends engine. Textures are designed to add nuance and sense of humanity into underscore elements, with a small ensemble that can perform well on smaller productions or easily doubled for a thicker sound. Okay, interesting. So very emotional terminology used here. I like it because that tends to be my goal as well. We shall see if it comes to pass. Also, happy to see a small ensemble size. There's a picture here. I think I can see, how many can I see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players, I think. So yeah, something more akin to a chamber setup can definitely, smaller configurations have this kind of intimacy, and they can sound absolutely huge as well. It's not really, the perception of a great big sound doesn't usually have necessarily anything to do with the size of the section, although it can. But sometimes when you, especially I like these kind of personal, intimate details. So excited to see the section size here. Recorded in the Nave. Am I saying that right? Let me know. I want to say Nav, but it's probably the Nave, Studio 1. The ensemble is formed of 3 violins, violas, and cello respectively. Okay, cool. This makes the library very versatile, for small, large scale works. Additional control over 3 microphone signals, so we got close, mid, and far. As usual, full ensemble was recorded together as one, rather than each instrument section individually. Very cool. Will usually result in a more cohesive sound, creating a more unified sound, they say. This is combined with our 16 atmosphere layers. 16! Damn! Makes the library a great asset to any contemporary composer's sample library arsenal. Yeah, I mean, again, the atmosphere layers are really something quite... I was going to say unique. I guess they are. Yeah, I mean, they tremendously extend the usability of this stuff, especially for the kind of like emotional, more ambient, droney stuff. Okay, features. They have something called CHORDAL textures. Sophisticated engine which tracks the notes that are held and intelligently plays back samples which move between those intervals. Cool, so it's kind of reading what you're doing. This means that unlike other sample libraries, you can simply play without having to select a specific key or mode. Cool. I like it. Hey, the less I need to do, I'm all in. At the bottom of the interface, individual intervals can be isolated should composers wish to extend their chords in new ways. UNISON textures, a collection of useful sustained textures that can easily blend together with chordal textures or in addition to other string. Okay, yeah, I read that in a fucked up way, but the goal of these articulations was to capture motion. Cool. And more nuance. Fair enough. Layer blends. As with our previous library trails, we have supplied the layer blends engine in string formations. This allows the user to combine 3 different layers across 20 atmosphere layers. 20? When did we go from 16 to 20? And 8 unprocessed articulations. Cool. All right. Key info. This is going to be released Tuesday, 21st of May. Filming a few days ahead, but that's when it will be available. I suppose that's when this video is available. Intro price is $99, £89, and €99. And this is going to end Tuesday, 18th of June. Okay, so that you have a fair bit of time. And then I guess this is full price will be $149 or 149 euros, or in pounds 129, including VAT. Okay, all right. Well, I think that gets us up to speed. Still, you know, this useful information to go through, but what this really sounds like they called it emotional, you know, cinematic, but in terms of like beyond that, no idea. In terms of transparency, Fracture Sounds did send me this copy, so first of all, thank you to them for doing so. That being said, as always, all opinions, both in good and bad, are my own. I haven't been asked to say anything one way or the other, nor would I ever do that. In terms of what you'll be hearing today, it's only string formations in action. I don't add any reverb, EQ, no effects, nothing. It's only this library. I have a limiter on my master bus to make the level more decent and consistent for this video, but it's set to be as transparent as possible. Does that cover everything we wanted to touch on? Oh yeah, I do have, we have some renovations going on pretty much right behind that wall there. So it means we might hear some drilling every once in a while, and it will probably be pretty loud. So I'll try and time it in places where I'm not speaking, but I will be muting my mic if I'm playing stuff here. It will probably bother me more than you, because it's hard to think when there's a massive jackhammer going on there, but hopefully not too much drilling going on. I'm also extremely tired and exhausted, so if I am more scatterbrained than usual, I do apologize. I'll try and stay focused. As I said, this is a blind demo, so I have not played a single note of this before this. Really starting off by, I just want to have a glance at this interface here. Just going to press this cog icon here so you get some information of who did what. Very nice. You get a control for tightness, which is the sample offset, really. Dynamic range control controls how much the volume of the instrument is affected by the dynamics modulation. Fair enough. Delayed release, okay. Nice control. Key switch range, you can change that. Very good. Nice. Controls for dynamics. I guess that, yep, maps to the mod wheel here. Color. Usually these tend to be sort of a bit more than just a kind of a shell of EQ. They tend to do more, typically. Delay. Controls the level of the wet delay signal. Ah, that's pretty ballsy to put a delay there in the string library. That's cool. But I guess it will pair well with the sound of this library. Reverb, nice. We got a bit of a cog for that. You have hall, room, shimmer, and I thought that said cow, but it's not a cow reverb, it's a convolution. So you can choose those. You got size, modulation, and damping. Nice. These reverbs from Fracture Sounds, or whatever they're using here, have been pretty solid, so probably will be the case here. You also got the control for the delay. You get modern and tape, so 2 types. Then you have different time signature here. Saturation, damping, and feedback. Cool. Looking at the mix, you got 2 different windows. You got the layer mix, which is the raw signal with only the strings, and then you have the atmosphere layers here. And then you have a mic mix, which controls the close, mid, and far mics for the strings alone. You have a nice, cool perspective slider here, which you move here, but you see nothing. But if you go into the mic mix, now you see the balance change. I really like this slider, far more so than going individually at these individual sliders, because it's just faster. And usually I love working in close miking and then doing my own reverb, but sometimes if it's a well captured space, I will want to have different elements here. And I will say that Fracture Sounds has been pretty exceptional in that category. They have had very solid like actually good sounding and usable and interesting mic recordings from different positions. Like Spotlight Piano, Tom Factory come to mind. So this is very much worth exploring. But yeah, I'll probably still tilt towards something like this in most cases. But cool. Atmosphere intensity, it just kind of ramps up everything happening in the atmosphere. Layers, so that's worthwhile exploring. And then we have these 8 boxes here, which basically choose the articulations, the styles that you're going to be using, and very descriptive. Airy sustains, flowing sustains, currents, blooms, interspersed, there we go, tremolo, streams, flurries, sporadic harmonies. I also appreciate the additional effort they put into these graphics, because it does make things faster for spectrum people like myself, and just faster kind of a processing. You don't have to read, you can just look. I should also look at the menu here. So again, when you open string formations in the side panel here, the rack, I think it's called, you have 5 different instruments, I guess these are called. I still am horrendous at the terminology, although I do quite a lot of these demos. There's a lot of contact terminology that I'm abusing continuously. But you have main unison textures, which is what we have open here. You have chordal textures. You have additional unison textures. Okay, that's interesting. Additional layer blends engine, and then the individual articulations. So I am still inclined towards starting with these ones. So main unison textures it is. And sounds like we're going to have a bit of drilling soon. But hey, let's get our hands dirty here. I'm going to just start playing this and we'll see what happens. In fact, let me, oh, what did I do? Oh, shit. Side pain. That's what I have in my ribs. Yeah, I just wanted to reset this to make the mic mix default. I'm hoping it's defaulting. Yeah, seems like it's a mid mix emphasis. So we got some hammering happening there. Good time to start playing. So this will be the Airy Sustains. And bear with us as I get a level going with the limiter. Had a bit of a CPU spike there. I think it's something due to my system and setup. It's been a bit weird lately, so that was not the library itself. Okay, pretty interesting. Very, as I expected, has a like a distinct sound and style to it. Many things to cover here. Obviously, we're doing very static stuff. I'm not even using the mod wheel here, which will presumably add more, you know, motion there. But already in the recording, you can hear that motion happening. It gets more static when you stay there for longer. I maybe expected a bit more fluctuation there. But it's the start of the samples are especially strong. Interesting, every articulation also has this cog box here, and you can control attack, release, volume, and pan. So yeah, what I'm wondering here is how much of this is coming from the architecture versus the reverb. So I'm going to actually pull down the reverb all the way. I actually want to go full close mic here. And also, yeah, I should note that when you move the mod wheel by default, it is also adjusting the atmosphere intensity. So you're not just listening to the reverb, it's also the atmosphere layers. So let's go back to this somewhat default mix. I want to see how the dynamics respond, and yeah, just without the reverb as well. Very, very good. I'm loving how the dynamics here are really nicely blending with the playability of it, the sound of it, the samples here. It feels natural. It feels organic, like I'm conducting this section. There's no gimmickness about it. It doesn't sound like, oh, that's just a bit of volume control, which is really not. What I'm looking for in dynamics control more than anything is the textural changes. I want to hear the differences in there. Obviously there's level related to that, but that's like a different dimension. Very obviously very different compared to textural changes that come from actual playing. I really love the slow end. This is a really, really good sounding low end. Previously when my playing and what I played was a bit shitty, not how I would actually arrange for strings. So it was mostly sounding pretty shit because of that. But let's go a bit higher up and explore this sound. I'll do the same thing with the mod wheel stuff. So right off the bat, I'm really loving the sound. I get a feeling that I would love to, for this low range of the dynamic, to go even quieter, even more sensitive. Because even as I push the mod wheel, I feel like I'm already getting to maybe the top end of what I would go for with this type of sound. So I would probably take the last third of this, because it does get pretty loud. Not like loud, but there's not quite enough textural change for me to justify that. I would rather take that and have it in the low, an additional third in the low, and to go like super quiet and sensitive. I love this core sound of this. To me, it's like begging for more range there. So that's why you saw me like move very little down here, because I was sort of hoping to go even lower. But let me play a bit more with that. So I wouldn't go for that cluster chord for this sound. It gets a bit sort of pad-like. Again, that's not like good or bad. I mean, depends on how you're using it. I want to push the volume higher up to get a better sense of how that works. Also had a CPU clip there. I don't know what's up with that, but yeah, I mean, again, love the core sound of it. I'd rather go even quieter and more sensitive and like texturally like sparse and broken. I wouldn't, for my kind of style and my sound and what I'm hearing this sound wanting to do, I would, in this mid-range, I wouldn't even probably push past the halfway point of dynamics here. But obviously it depends on what you're doing, but the core sound is really, really, really beautiful. And again, like, even if I can certainly, this is where volume does come into play when you have a library that doesn't quite go into the textural dynamic expression that you want. In the low end, you know, you can play with volume. I can play with volume a bit more as I'm at the low end of this dynamic if I like the sound, but I want it to get even more sensitive. You can play with volume and your mind sort of does the interpretation that it wants to of that sound and make it sound sort of more sparse and broken. I'm going to push higher up here to get a better idea of this high end. there's the drilling. Again, just a beautiful, sensitive, emotional sound. Obviously, these sounds are going to evoke different things for different people, and you're going to want to play different things than I would. Really loving this. I do get a sense for this articulation, at least, that I'd love to take that top third and just not have that like that dynamic, that loudness, and just have more an extended sensitivity, like really quite a dynamic and textural change there. Because to me, that's what this sound is like asking for. It just wants to be super delicate and gentle and sensitive. Then again, there where I did test the higher dynamic going into the quieter one, absolutely makes sense for you know, certain parts, and it sounds great. It doesn't sound like, again, it doesn't sound wrong. It doesn't sound like it's just volume. So that absolutely does work. But again, this is kind of like a generalization of where my intuition is going with that. You know, I'd rather have the even quieter, more sensitive end rather than have the top dynamic. For the cellos here in the low end, I don't have any qualms with that. That's really nicely balanced. This tends to actually be a very typical phenomenon if I'm testing libraries, and I find the dynamics to be perfect in the low strings, and then not quite go quite enough in the top. So I don't know, maybe I'm the problem more than anything. Here, so it seems like again, we don't have any reverb here, so seems like the kind of the washiness, or the, yeah, I mean, and again, that's obvious, often a term that is deemed as a negative thing, but I mean like the flowiness of the strings from note to note. I guess it's then controlled by the release. So I'm going to pull this down just to get an idea of how the library actually works. This is probably not what you'd want to do or is recommended, but I just want to get a sense of how it's working sort of technically. By the way, I have to say, I love the sampling and the capturing of the beginning of those notes. They sound like a player is actually doing it. They have those impurities, those imperfections, those textures, which I really, really, really love. So brilliant job on those. Okay, so a lot better than I expected. And this is actually, because with the right reverb, maybe I would adjust a tad bit more of this in there. But I just wanted to hear it in its most extreme state. Really good. It's still, obviously you can hear that it changes, but the release of it is quite natural, and it's pleasant sounding. And I'm also liking, you could actually do some pretty interesting sounding stuff with that. Like, to me, it sounds like an interesting, almost like a more organic, natural, kind of reverse effect, because there's a bit of suck there, but it sounds like quite capturing and pretty interesting. So you can actually do let's do something halfway there. I'm not going to sing that song because copyright. I want to, oh, there's the drilling. All right, let's try this release halfway there. Yeah, really good. Really good. Because now you have the option of going for that weird, like that fast stop, which doesn't sound bad at all. It just sounds like a kind of a very interesting processing style. It sounds like it's sort of edited to be more dramatic, but obviously, you know, it's not supernatural sounding, but that's why you can go halfway there. So I would probably, because I was sort of concerned at first that this is kind of relying on this release factor, so that it's kind of becomes this kind of washy library, kind of washy sound. Yeah, that's a sentence. And so it would sort of rely on these kind of slow movements, but you can actually go far faster if you pull it down. Let's try that in its most extreme setting. Yeah, I ballsed that up, but... very interesting. It becomes pretty much like a reverb, but it sounds more like a recording of the space. It doesn't sound like, oh, there's a bunch of like just like a reverb effects processor on there. It sounds like a recording of that space. So that's actually a really interesting. This is a super just this control alone diversifies the capabilities of this library a lot. So please do play with that. That's super nicely done, very versatile. Everything sounds great, it just sounds different, so it's up to you how to use that. Very cool. Very, very, very cool. I think we should, because I've already spent a lot of time on this. It tends to happen with these libraries. I spent too much time in the beginning here. Interesting drilling. Let's go into flowing sustains. Actually, let's not do that. Still, I want to test just the close mic on its own. I'll adjust the release to be at sort of 25%, which is kind of seemed like a most neutral-ish thing. But this is the close micing. Again, we are getting a bit of, actually, screw it. Let's turn off the atmosphere layers as well. And we shall have something interesting, I'm sure. So with this combination, I'll probably extend the release a bit. Let's bring it back to halfway. Let's adjust these mic perspectives a bit. So this is the mid alone. nice. I actually prefer the mid position here to the close, which is super rare for me to say that. I also like how it automatically, if you go in there and tweak, how dare you tweak the mic positions on your own without the perspective slider, it grays out here, so that's nice. Let's test the far mics, and let's pull back the release again. It seems to be very dependent on the mic position that you're going with, which makes sense, because if you're closer to it, the instrument with the mic, the changes in the release are going to be more abrupt, whereas in the mid position, if it's actually recorded, you're going to get more of the space, thus more of a release. So makes sense. That's drilling. Let's listen to the far position. Didn't want to go into that chord. Yeah, so it seems like it will still, I would go with the halfway release. I will say these mic positions, once again, do impress me tremendously. Really liking the far mics, really liking the mid mics. So I would probably go heavier on those based on, at least on this articulation here. So very cool stuff. This is kind of unraveling. Is that the right word? Maybe. My impression is that this is the versatility and utility of this library is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because it can do different sounds. And to me, the mid and far positions sound more emotional. Like I can pull sort of more human emotion as opposed to animal emotion, for example. Pull that emotion out of those positions. They seem super delicate and sort of present in time. Really liking that. Let's finally move on to let's turn back those mics. Move on to flowing sustains. So very interested in hearing what this sounds like. Remember, we've only touched one articulation out of 8 so far, and one instrument out of 5. So I want to start at that again. That start is interesting. There's a definite difference between the sections, how they start that articulation. It kind of comes in a sort of a quiet and then in a flurry. So it's interesting. It's not kind of, it would be very conditional whether that would be desirable or not for me. Yeah, that one definitely depends a lot on the dynamic there. So it's coming in a sort of a very distinctively different way. By the way, I love the top end of this because it's clearly getting into a different textural realm. You get that top end kind of sprinkle and a bit of that a bit of that scratchiness. Very, very, very nice. Okay, so bunch of stuff happening there. Very interesting. First of all, I would probably, if I was writing in this articulation, I would do the low end on its own and the high end on its own. There's a bit of like discrepancy between how the dynamics sort of land on each of those. I would do the low end and control the dynamics there. Then I would do the high end and control the dynamics there, because at times it feels like the high end is going a bit too hard compared to the low end. So that's how I would balance those two things. First of all, I love the sound. Beautiful, very sensitive, but also there's a lot more tension there, a lot more sort of pressure building up, so to speak. I love the slight tuning impurities there, the slight wonkiness or unnerving quality of it, but it's in that perfect space where it's slightly troubling, slightly what's the word? Interesting, fascinating, and sort of unstable. Very beautiful. And the high end here is aching. That's very, very, very beautiful. Again, I'm kind of wishing, especially when it comes to mid-range up, I'm wishing that I would again take the top third of the dynamic and take that off and have a lower third more of like super quiet, sensitive stuff. Because as you could see, I was sort of trying to be in the low end, especially with these aching, beautiful strings and that texture. I want to go super quiet and sensitive. And also that issue is kind of exacerbated. No, that's not a word. I can't pronounce shit today or any other day really, but exacerbated. No, that sounds more like masturbation, and that's not what I wanted to go for. Anyway, the problem is made worse by the fact that I feel like I'm getting two different dynamics for the lower end versus the higher end. But again, so a lot of good and bad, and also that can be remedied by just splitting it into two. But yeah, that sound is beautiful. All that effort for not a very good arrangement. But yeah, wow, Yeah, this is just right down my alley. Very beautiful. Let's move on to currents. And again, you have to remember that we didn't even touch the miking positions here. Again, I would lean towards the mid and far, but we're getting a pretty good mix here. But we can't do everything here, and this is already getting longer than is healthy. But let's move on to currents. Really intense drilling going there, so I'm trying hard to focus here and actually hear something. Beautiful texture. I love, again, here the differences in tone and texture are there's more change, more resolution to them. So I actually really enjoy using this a lot more on this articulation. Really great sounding. Again, super emotional. I was kind of hoping for more of this type of stuff to kind of emerge, and it did. So this really covers a lot of bases here, and we're not even halfway through the articulations, so super nice. Let's do blooms. Okay, so right off the bat, we are getting a lot of dynamics there, which is, you know, I've been asking for, so very cool. So that's the quietest dynamic, so it will sort of bloom to that level even at the minimum. Very cool, unlike that drilling. I don't know how loud that is for you guys. I do apologize. This is pretty annoying. But okay, so loving that. One of the concerns I would have is that I would probably want to control the blooming separately again, and in relation to the dynamics for the low end and then the high end. So I would split those and control them individually. That's really the only point I have to say about that. Loving the texture there, loving the sound of it, very good. And it's just like expanding, like as you begin to, if you combine multiple of these, which I think you can. If I can I can't. Let's move it, as we know we can. There we go. So still? Did I balls it up? Okay. Let's get it over here. There we go. This is a very good feature. So I think, yeah, if I press many of them at the same time, it combines a bunch of them. Still not super educated on how it's going to choose what based on what. But if I do blooms, currents, if I do all of the 4 here, let's see what happens. Pull back the limiter a bit. That drilling is getting worse. Especially as you begin to combine these, I suspect that the kind of they have to be somehow not stacking, but it seems like that I want to get that lower dynamic third even more with those combined. I still don't know how it exactly works. Someone did explain it to me. Thank you, and I do apologize. But apparently it is flowing through the different ones, combining them in some sort of a way. But at least, I mean, we had 4 of them combined there, so I'm sure it's pretty hard to detect what is doing what. Let's move on to interspersed tremolo. There we go. Oh yeah, one of the things I wanted to say about the flowing sustains, I really love how they took on this airy quality. So, a lot of the time when you do strings that way, they sort of work as a bridge between the woodwinds and the strings. And oftentimes, like when I started working with sample libraries, I realized, how many of the sounds that I love are sort of in between the two. It's actually strings causing this sound, or woodwinds causing this sound. And it's kind of like woodwinds pairing with brass that creates that sound. That's what I've learned through the use of sample libraries. So really liking that this is capable of pulling those in between worlds and textures. And this, it reminded me, this interspersed tremolo is doing some of the same stuff. again, there gets very loud, but there it works really nicely because you can go like drastically loud. Obviously that's more sort of useful in a cinematic context. There again, partially, especially for, you know, mid upwards, I would like to get that additional quietness, but in this articulation works a lot better because it is sort of, you know, fluctuating and moving, so not complaining at all in terms of that. Let's do streams. So that's maximum dynamic. Bit of a level difference there, but that's perfectly fine. It's a stunning sound. Beautiful. And listen to the dynamics. They flow so smoothly and perfectly. Back into that delicate, subtle sound. That's stunning. Yeah, that's gonna be a walk away. Hands in the air from me. That's a really good one. I mean, or a couple of times before when I wanted to do the walk away, but that's just beautifully stunning. Let's move on to Flurries. Otherwise, I'm gonna just play that for the entire day. That's the limiter. It gets quite a bit loud, but sounds great. And again here, the dynamics don't get excessive at all. That's a beautifully powerful but controlled dynamic range. It doesn't sound like, oh, overwhelming. It's just like it's a lot of energy coming through, but it's pretty much perfectly balanced. I also love that the pitchy, obviously they're, you know, playing pretty fast and sporadically there. That creates super interesting harmonics there, and the pitch, when you start to combine different notes, becomes it begins to reside in these sort of in-between areas, which is super pleasant to me to listen to, because it's like, oh, I recognize that harmony and that chord, but it's something's different or off, but in a very good way. Love the Flurries. Flurries? What did I say? Flurries. And going into sporadic harmonics. So this is the last one in main unison textures. Loving this. This is so cool. Yeah, that's super awesome. I love this kind of stuff. Very nice. Yeah, nothing nothing more to say about that. Cool. Okay, I think for the sake of time here, let's open the side panel here, and we'll go into chordal textures. Oh my lord. I mean, there's so much in here, and at this price point, even at full price, this is super competitive. Super interesting. I know we haven't even touched these, but for $149 getting this, yeah. Marky Mark says yes, please. Okay, let's get into this. I'm gonna keep the interval in smart mode because we all know I need someone else to be smart for me. If I can offload that part of my existence, yes. And we'll just go raw. We'll go in raw. Okay, I'm just gonna keep it there. So default settings, reverb. I'm gonna again. Let's pull that back. I'm resisting the temptation to say something, and I will. Flutters. Let's go there. Fuck me, this is good. That wasn't encouragement, just saying. I mean, that burst of energy there to the right very much made me kind of go back to, listening to like chamber ensembles in a good, beautiful space where the sound resonates off the walls in a like a pleasant way. This is really, really, really good. Again, dynamics here, really, really good. The kind of the pad thickness that sort of appears here in the lower third of the spectrum, it's beautiful resonances. It's like a natural pad machine. Alright, stellar. I would do the walk away, but I don't want to walk any more than I have to. Let's go into alternations. So here you can hear that what I did there doesn't really jive well with the articulation and what the engine wants to do. So these are the kind of points where you would, if you wanted to sound realistic, you go by the terms of the library. But also that works both ways because it can be an actual inspiration to be like, oh, okay, he wants to do that, so let's try and do that. And it's just, yeah. So, okay, this is really good. It's just getting better the deeper you go. That's... yeah, okay, seriously, what I'm so impressed by, like, yes, I mean, we know the textures, we know the tones, that the playability is beautiful, but I'm getting so impressed by the recordings here. You can hear the reflections of the goddamn walls of that space, and they're resonating in a beautiful way. This is one of the difficulties in great recordings, because it's not enough to have a great player and a great instrument and a great microphone and a great chain tracking that, but you are tracking in a space, and the instrument is in sympathetic or non-sympathetic resonance with the space there. So it's like a completely different experience, and this is why I struggled as an instrument player, not only due to my limited technical ability, but also like when you're playing in different spaces, every space sounds different. I would be super sensitive to the resonances of the space, and if there was a good resonance, I would be, I don't know, 3 times better as a player than I would be, sort of from my baseline, because I would feed off that energy. And no matter what I'm playing, whether it's keyboard or drums or singing, that's a huge part of it. And here it's just so impressive how well the space pairs with the playing here and everything. It's just like, that's actually, I'm not sure, not many times come to mind that this has been the case. I don't think I've ever been so impressed by a pleasant like a resonance of a space in a sample library like this. Certainly not in the kind of orchestral instrument category, because it's super difficult to capture, I'm sure. And here, this is where the mid-far mics must come into play, because I mean, yeah. Let's move on to glides. Getting a bit crazy with the limiter. It's actually very, very cool. I imagine that's very difficult to make sound good. I love that kind of a sound for, like, not like hybrid music in the sense of hybrid epic or orchestral music, but like hybridizing, let's say a string section with something like synths or something, more modern. Really, that kind of, those sounds pair well with those type of modern sounds, at least in my estimation. Airy Flutters. So this is like when you rip one rip one off. I do apologize for my sense of humor gets worse the more excited I am, and this gets me very excited, so it's gonna get worse, I'm afraid. And again, here I feel like I can feel the energy of the space. This is so good. I'm gonna do it again. I just can't resist the walk away. It's good. There's just like so much energy and vibe there. It feels like I'm actually listening to like a score. It's like, yeah. Going into flowing flutters. I was going to say flowering flutters. Maybe that can be in the next library. Yeah, I'm doing it again. I mean, this is just like a, you know, home run after home run. I need to make sure this is recording good, because I would hate for this to be missed. Okay, intense alternations. I really love that transition, because it sounded like the cellos were coming in a bit late, but it was so tastefully done. Yeah, brilliant. Intense glides. Yeah, I know what this is about. I know everything about this topic. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah, it's just brilliant, brilliant. This is, yeah, this CHORDAL thing. This is the shit, let me tell you. Additional UNISON textures. Jeez. Oh my, I can't believe this. This is just like value after value. I would have bought it for the very first instrument, but it seems to be getting better. Although these are called additional, so, you know, I don't expect more than what has been already given to me. But let's get into it, man. Turbulent Tremolos. It's so good. This just like, and you get so many different options, but this is not like an overwhelming amount, because sometimes some libraries are just so darn good and there's just an endless supply of great stuff. But this is still, well, we're talking about like what, 16 plus 24. Yes, 24 different articulations so far. This is, very manageable, and they all have their distinct energy, although they have definitely overlap stylistically and emotionally, but still. Moving on to ripples. I'm just loving the dynamics on the chordal texture stuff, and also on these ones. It's like perfect for what I would want to go for. And it's just like you have such a tremendous control of the energy of it, which is really rare. Like, and because of that, you have control over the emotion, and you don't have to be like super precise there. Like, I feel like I can kind of use this mod wheel. Like, I think about it as I would think about it as a conductor, and you want to be sort of in the zone where you can do big enough movements, and you're still in control of the emotion. You don't sort of go, oh, I should have been 10% less there. Like, this is very much nicely pairing with everything here, the sampling and how it comes together in the engine. So superb control over that. Drifts. Okay, I'm not gonna. I said the jokes were gonna get worse. Beautiful. I like this kind of stuff. It does get a bit much if you're doing everything from this, so I would probably choose the drift for a single melody line. I would choose the viola to do X, Y, or Z. You sort of supplement that drift with some other textures. It will pair beautifully, because if they're all sort of doing it, might be a bit too much depending on how you're writing stuff. But droplets. This is a very cool inclusion because it's been sort of a bit thinner on that side. First of all, listen to that dynamic range and listen to the imaging on this one. Fuck off. That's and I mean that with nothing but love. I mean, this is ridiculous. Okay, I'm doing it again. That is... It has no business doing that. Wow. Wow. Just... I got the shivers. there. Jeez. Ooh, circulations. Again, getting a bit of those kind of woodwind qualities out of those things. Yeah, loving that undulating, circulating tone. It's just, it's one of those feelings like, this is too good to be true. In about a few seconds, I'm going to wake up from my bed and be like, gonna email Fracture Sounds like, you're going to make a library like this. It just feels a bit too good to be true. The dynamics here are so good. I can't keep doing this all day. I'll be walking instead of making this demo. That is stupidly good. All right, short swells, of which I know nothing about. Ooh, I really like that. So it's a swell, obviously, but it stays at, if I keep the note playing, I can hear, in addition to drilling, or whatever the hell that is, you can hear a slight sustain going. It's very subtle, but beautiful balance. It's just enough to make you be like, oh, well, we're staying in that chord, aren't we? But it's like, and it's slightly fluctuating there, not like a static thing. And then in addition, you can play with the dynamics, which makes it like even 10 times better, because you can go from very subtle sustain to super quiet. So good. Yeah. Long swells, of which I know absolutely everything about. You see how much that tiny detail enhances this? Because a lot of companies would have done just a swell from silence to silence. Not Fracture Sounds. They like just having that slight sustain. And obviously you can still automate the level to make it disappear completely. Or you can stop playing. Let me increase the volume here. by the way, super impressive how the release happens, because you don't have to wait for the tail of the swell to come. You can just stop it in between. That release, super nicely done, because I imagine, again, that's super hard to make sound half decent. That is super impressive, because now it sounds more aggressive, but then the release is natural. Wow, yeah, I can't believe it. This is stupidly good. So, all right, for the sake of time, we're not gonna go into layer blends, because, I mean, how long have I been? It's an hour and a half already. Love this concept, though. As you can see, as I increase the mod wheel here, it brings these other layers into play. Really liking this graphical interface addition. So as I push the mod wheel, the lines extend on each layer, but they also light up. This is a fantastic visual addition. So fantastic job on that. Let's just really quickly demonstrate this. So you click a layer, you choose what you want to have in that layer. So let's go with, so it seems like we have, what do we have in here? We certainly have, I think, the first ones from the UNISON. So let me double check that. I don't want to. So we got from Airy Sustains to Sporadic Harmonics. Okay. Let's check here. Sustain. Okay, so we don't have everything here. It seems to be like a mixed bag of those. Are they droplet? Okay, so ripples, droplets. Now they are same for each layer, which makes sense. But then you have a bunch of atmosphere, not to be mixed with the Atmos Dolby system. Atmosphere layers, a bunch of those. But then you have, seems like a more limited selection of these articulations here. If I am to kind of piece it together from my half-baked RAM memory, these are a mix from a bunch of those different instruments. So let's choose one. Let's do ripples going into droplets going into circulations. And again, here the interface is slightly different sized. So I will, well, looks half decent on the video capture end. So let's move the mod wheel all the way down. So that's interesting. I think it's going from the low end dynamic of the ripple to, yeah, it kind of indicates like apparently when you reach the max. So at least based on visual feedback, this, when I get to the point of the layer, you know, around maybe that's 33% or something, it's still not at maximum, but it reaches maximum when layer 2 meets its midpoint, seems like it. So right off the bat, simply from a technical perspective, makes me think that I would want to adjust how these come in. I don't know if that's a feature. We have a lock here, we have a solo here. Octave? Does that? No, that purely controls the center here. Let's actually test that. Yeah, so it controls where it starts. Super great control, by the way, so you can mix things the way you want. But yeah, I would sort of, so this is kind of like, I remember I've given a number of different feedback on the layer engine. I'm sure it's been different every single time, and I apologize. These are simply different, aspects. But I would want to have control over the this is not based on any like playing experience, so take it with a grain of salt. But just from a technical standpoint, like how much adjustability from the technical, the engine I'd want to have, I'd probably want to adjust the relative ratios of all of these. And I think this is in like having layer 1 come in and then 2 and 3. This is the original feedback I had of the very first iteration of it. I think, could be wrong about that. That's a long time ago, and I have a memory of a manatee. I don't know. So that's really cool that it's. I think they iterated that pretty immediately, but I can also see why somebody would want to adjust the range in which the next layers come in. So maybe I'd want layer 2 to also begin to fade in sooner than this 33% point, or this is probably less than that, maybe. I would see why somebody might want to have that. So the relative, basically the ranges at which layers begin to come in. If you could customize that, I mean, I love this, that it goes from 1 to 2 to 3. But now the distribution is equal. So if I'd want to go for a different kind of a texture, then adjusting those ranges would be pretty cool. Hopefully I explained that with sufficient detail. But let's finally play this. So yeah, you get the idea. Fantastic tool, because this allows you to move between the layers in a way that you might want to do beyond what the previous stuff can do, what we did. So yeah, very cool. Yeah, probably this time my additional suggestion would be to maybe introduce like maybe points. You can't probably see my mouse here, I don't think, but you know, as you maybe like range points alongside this circle here, and you could basically move a slider next to the circle to adjust the ranges in which you'd like, relatively speaking, for the layer to move in. So for example, you could have layer 2 move from this range to this and go through its full extension, but then you can also adjust layer 1 to go from this to this range, for example, if that makes sense. Cool. Let me demonstrate this with just random atmosphere layers. The drilling is ongoing. So we've got plume, let's do drizzle, and let's do halo. So let's see how that sounds like. Absolutely stunning. We've been very skimping on the atmosphere layers here, but geez, that sounds really, really good. Unlike that drilling. Let's do another one. Divine Allure, and Vast. So you can see how the combination of the right layer with the right other layers has a huge difference. For example, here, Vast doesn't quite push through the pretty much Divine. But these sound really good. I love how they sound much more alive than before. Like the maybe the weakness of atmosphere layers so far have been that they don't have dynamics per se. They have the intensity control, which by the way makes me realize that they have, is this dynamics or just, it does sound like there's a bit of a filter change or something. It does open up. These sound really good, super like organic, very nicely, like clearly deriving from the string materials. Let's do another one, Cirrus. I knew I said that we wouldn't touch this, but you know, here we are. Voyage and Canvas. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that's a pretty good pairing, because again, we have that shimmery thing at the end and this sparse thing in the beginning. So combining them into a good combination is really the most important thing there. Really cool. Let's keep shimmer. Let's do size all the way. Let's do modulation. Maybe not all the way. Let's do a bit more damping. Let's max out the reverb here. I want to hear how spacey this can get. Really good. Yeah, I mean, this engine is getting better and better for me. And the reverb can indeed make it very spacey and nice. Then you also have lo-fi control delays. We didn't even have delays there. Very impressed by how the atmosphere layers seem to have the dynamics now, because that was, like I said, like a bit of the challenge with atmosphere layers, because you kind of had to create the dynamics yourself, so they were a bit static. So apparently they at least have, at least in this configuration here, sort of, you know, something akin to dynamics or some kind of intensity control, or maybe they just brought some new aspects to that. This is super good. I was not expecting that either. Then we have individual articulations, and these are in a UNISON texture folder and CHORDAL texture folder. I'll just open CHORDAL, and this, yeah, so these are basically, as far as I can tell, just the individual articulations, as they say, as opposed to having them in this this engine and this setup where you can combine them. Oh, like this. No? Shit. Still gotta bring up the, let's bring it up to this octave. Again, I love that feature. Yeah, you can combine these. Still, last time I tested, combined them, I did hear a difference. How useful is that going to be as a feature? I can't tell. I would need to just test it, because again, like, well, let's do that real quick. Let's try and do it actually with something that is more apparent. So I'm going to change into additional UNISON textures. I'm going to choose Droplets and Shivers. So again, let's move this up over here, and I'm gonna, where's Droplets? There. And then where's Shivers? There. So if I choose two of these now, we got them selected. It's probably playing both. How? In what way? I don't know. Let's try. Let's change Shivers to... Would ripples be better? Ripples and droplets. Sounds like a movie. As opposed to droplets only. And ripples only. So again, the challenge here is the pairing. Like, you just need to go through it yourself. The difficulty is that there's usually an articulation that is dominant against another one, so it might be sort of drowning there in between, so you have to really pair them well. But it did sound really good when we did combine these two there. No, here, over this. So yeah, that's just a good additional piece of functionality. Just listening to the drilling there. So yeah, and again, you can go into the setting here, which, by the way, this makes me realize how useful the volume control is, because you can go then in here individually on each of these. And for example, if I felt like the ripples were too loud in relation to the droplets, I could go in here and pull it down and kind of problem solved. So again, they really thought this through really well, because that would be my main concern. So this really, again, makes this super nice to work with and diversifies what it can do. Okay, I think we went through all of it. Well, I mean, to summarize, in case you didn't watch me listen to this is absolutely fantastic. Like, right off the bat, highly recommended. Like, if you like these kind of string textures, kind of more sensitive, emotional, cinematic, texturally rich and subtle sounds, this is like a must have in my book in terms of the kind of string sounds that I very often want to go for. Obviously, it does this sound, so if you don't write music in this style, then it's why are we even talking? But if it is your thing, this is just beginning to lend fantastic work, fantastic value for the, what are they called? Let me go back in here. The only thing that comes to mind is that I'd want this main unison texture, some of these articulations, to go even quieter. Just a personal preference. I'd want them to be even more quiet and sensitive. But in chordal textures and also in additional unison textures, they were pretty much spot on. So that's the only piece of criticism that I can come up with. And I was also blown away by how good the layers engine is working now, and also the atmosphere layers. That was really the thing we didn't dig in as deep into, but based on what they sound like in the atmosphere engine, or the layer blends engine, excuse me, sound really good, because they seem to have this additional dimension of dynamics there. I don't know if it's the layer blends engine giving it that, or whether they have inherently increased dynamics also through this intensity control. But yeah, stunning work, like full points pretty much. Almost a full score. Yeah, so that's what I think. If you have this at home or at your studio now, let me know what you think, or if you get it now, let me know what you think, and let me know what you think of this video. That's it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Finished.